Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. It's so nice to see each of you. Welcome to the Forum, a weekly program of the Columbus Metro Club where we cultivate conversations and connections that drive our region forward. The Forum brings together visionary leaders. That includes CEOs, members of Congress, college presidents, UN ambassadors, artists, and change makers to examine issues that matter, exchange diverse perspectives, and forge connections that create a better region. For 50 years, the CMC has brought together Columbus for dialogue that informs us, that challenges, but most importantly, inspires us for action. And today is absolutely no different. My name is Sophia Pfiffner. I'm the president and CEO of the Columbus Metropolitan Club, and we're coming to you from the National Veterans Memorial and Museum in the heart of Columbus. Not only is NVMM the home to CMC's weekly forums, it's also proof that democracy requires something from all of us. It requires us to show up. So thank you so much for showing up today. I'd also like to thank our forum sponsor, Retzel and Andrus. We'd also like to thank Downtown Columbus Incorporated for providing free parking. Thank you to the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation for presenting our live stream, and our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch. We are incredibly grateful to everyone who helps to make CMC forums possible every single week. So let's give them all a round of applause. Also, I'd be remiss to not introduce a few special guests that we have in the audience today. We have students from the Columbus City Schools Superintendent Ambassadors Program. These amazing young people are here today thanks to the generosity from the Robert Weiler Company and a new partnership with the CMC. So thank you so much for being here. We're glad that you're here. All right, so welcome to today's very forward-looking forum, turning AI success into Columbus's next advantage. The AI economy isn't coming, it's here right now. But will Columbus lead? Will we follow? Or just watch the AI revolution from the sidelines? I think I know what today's panelists think, as I've had a couple of conversations with them. But innovative leaders are racing to figure out how to harness the power of AI. It could turn out to be one of the most powerful tools ever created for businesses, for research, and who knows what else. To introduce our speakers and to please help me welcome Scott Brown with today's forum sponsor, Retzel and Andrus. Scott, welcome to CMC.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Brown. I'm the shareholder in charge of the Columbus office of Retzel and Andrus. It's my pleasure to be here today representing Retzel as the forum sponsor for this great panel. Retzel and Andrus is celebrating its 150th year as a law firm, making it the longest continuously running firm in Ohio. It's also the only firm in Ohio with offices in the 5 largest cities in the state. In Columbus, we have a particular focus on corporate and technology clients, including technology startups, marketing agencies, software developers, real estate developers, and more. Some of our clients are leading in AI, but all are either utilizing it or at a minimum are affected by it. It's very easy to speak about AI too generally and fail to grasp what it is, what it isn't, and how it can be used to both benefit businesses and the world. I also believe that it's too easy to declare that the AI revolution is complete. We are still living through both its development and implementation into everyday life and processes. I think it's important to remember that it is still up to all of us what role AI will play in our lives. That is why discussions like today's panel are so important, to hear from local experts regarding what is currently happening with this technology, what can happen next, and how it is impacting and being impacted by local businesses, investors, and educational institutions. With that, I'd like to introduce today's excellent panel of thought leaders. On the far end, we have Shereen Agrawal, the Executive Director of the Center for Software Innovation at The Ohio State University. Next is Alex Frommeyer, founder and CEO of Stack Health and chairman of Beam Benefits. And last, we have Tim Grace, managing director of Techstars Columbus. And introducing our host, Carrie Ghosh, the senior reporter for Columbus Business First. Thank you.
So I started my day in Granville at Denison University, founded 1831, liberal arts. They are renovating and expanding what used to be their administration headquarters to launch new majors in data analytics and artificial intelligence and machine learning. So it's everywhere. Artificial intelligence was coined in the 50s. It's kind of nothing new, but we all know something different is happening. So Root Insurance, founded here, had Ohio's biggest IPO ever, uses AI to track the movement of your phone. There's gyroscopes and accelerometers in your iPhone, and they know how safe a driver you are and set your premiums accordingly. There is a huge factory on the west side, Path Robotics. They take welding robots, which are famously difficult to program and famously can't handle anything if it's a millimeter off. They make those robots see, they make them pick up parts, hold them together, adjust, and do perfect welds. So that's not the AI that you're asking, what's the best Thai food on Bethel Road? There are these amazing tools, and we use one term for all of it, and our understanding has become very muddied and broad and loose. And so what we're here today is to help you understand just how profoundly AI is changing business building, how the tools for entrepreneurship have never been more powerful than today. Someone famous, Tim, recently told me, every company built in the last 6 months is an AI company. Every company before that is less AI native than those before. So what is Columbus's role in this revolution? What are our strengths and weaknesses? What is at stake? So talk about software eating the world. Let's try to break that into smaller bites. See what I did there? So Tim, what do you mean by AI native or not? And should every other company that's pre-existing be worried about this? And maybe by way of doing that, introduce a quick explanation of what Techstars is, why it's here in Columbus, and an example of a recent startup that's gone through the program that is an AI native.
Thank you, Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. So I will get into the answer to the AI native thing, and I'm far from famous, especially compared to my esteemed panelists here. So Techstars is a startup accelerator. So it's similar to other accelerator programs you may have heard of, like Y Combinator. And basically what we do is we identify a very small set of exceptional companies, early stage technology companies primarily. We invest some capital in those companies for a small equity stake, and we put them through a very intense experience designed to accelerate their growth, sort of hence the name. And so the Techstars is a 20-year-old company. Actually, we turned 20 this year. And we run about 21 of these accelerators across the globe. And the program that I've run here in Columbus, we run it in collaboration with Ohio State University. Actually, I collaborate very, very closely with Shereen and the Center for Software Innovation. And that collaboration largely takes the companies that we invest in and avails them of the many resources that the university has to offer in terms of faculty, staff, research, commercialization opportunities through things like the Wexner Center Accelerator. And my program has existed for a couple of years now. We've invested in 42 companies for the past 2 years. And those companies have raised about $25 million after our program and are valued collectively at over $140 million now. So that's just a little bit about what we do at Techstars. To sort of pivot into the answer to your question, Carrie, I kind of think of AI native as any company that is started today has a structural advantage. And that advantage manifests itself in multiple ways across the company. It means that if you start a company today, your data models, your user experience, how you structure your team, your financial model and approach is all based on this new paradigm that now exists in how we work. And every company that was created before that is actually racing to try to get to that level of baseline. So they are doing tons of workforce workflow transformation, and obviously we hear a lot of talk about teams, team reductions and sort of restructuring, et cetera. In fact, the big frontier AI companies, OpenAI and Anthropic, they actually are working directly with the large consulting companies like McKinsey and Bain, et cetera, to go into these companies and do this sort of transformation. Hundreds of millions of dollars is being spent to do this. And they're just trying to engineer what the AI native companies have today. And how that manifests itself, like why that matters, why that structural advantage matters is, one, in terms of speed and growth and the ability to build a high velocity company. There are, if you look at just last year, the number of companies that went from 0 to 10 million in annual incurring revenue in 3 months doubled from 2024. For context, like Slack, which is probably a company that like a lot of one of the fastest growing companies in history before this, took them a year to get to 10 million in annual recurring revenue. And we have a huge explosion of companies that are getting there in 3 months. It also impacts efficiency, so like how you're able to build your company and what resources you need. There are multiple $100 million ARR, annual recurring revenue companies that are sort of AI native today, and many of them are sub 50 employees. When Slack was at 100 million in revenue, they had 500 employees. It's a dramatic difference in the footprint it takes to build those companies. And maybe the last point, like why this matters, there really isn't a tech sector anymore. The entire market's tech. If you look at 70% of the earnings growth in the S&P 500 the next year, it's going to come from all the big tech and AI companies. So your entire retirement, your 401k is more or less dependent on this sector because that's where we are. So there's lots of implications about what all of this means, and I'm sure the rest of the panel will get into it.
You heard him say it, but if you heard him say ARR, that's tech companies, they don't just say we made this much money. They kind of annualize like our monthly revenue, because it changes so quickly. Our monthly revenue at this point, if you times 12, would be our annual recurring revenue. So they're math people, it's all right.
Kind of.
Your last company started with hardware. It was a smart toothbrush that would talk to your phone and measure how well you brushed, and then that led to your ultimate goal was to start an insurance company and provide employee benefits, dental, and then expanded to vision life. And your new startup, Stack Health, is in the benefits space, but it is an AI native company. So what is different about building then and building now?
This is a good one. Thanks to CMC for hosting. Similar to what Tim was just saying, I have a business, Beam Benefits, founded in 2012, and we moved it to Columbus in 2014 as a Drive Capital portfolio company, and now a business that is about 6 months old, Stack Health. And even though they're in a very similar domain space, employee benefits and insurance with a small and medium-sized business customer in common, these companies are being built in a wildly different way. So even though Beam is only about 12, 13 years old, it is already a last-gen company that, just like any other large established business, has to now go through an AI transformation, which is what we have a board meeting tomorrow, and this is all we're going to talk about in tomorrow's board meeting, is our progress against becoming AI native. And this is for a business that is a high-growth, venture capital-backed technology business. Imagine how difficult, which is why we're all spending a lot of time talking about this, thinking about it, and working on it in our businesses today. Imagine how difficult this transition is going to be for a 100-year-old industrial business or a 35-year-old services business. This is something that is going to take a lot of money, time, attention, effort. It's going to transform, destroy, create new businesses, categories, industries. Things will go away. Other things will consolidate. We are at the very, very, very beginning of another huge transformation, just like the commercial internet was starting in the mid-90s. And I would argue that the internet is still more or less in its early stages. So now we're like compounding another internet-sized platform inside of the still evolving, growing, changing internet platform. So this is going to be a really exciting time for anybody who's getting in the game, already in the game, or trying to transform the game. inside their business today. My new company, Stack, is taking advantage of AI in a variety of ways. In fact, I don't think we could build this business, which is helping take group insurance. So health insurance benefits are typically administered at the group level, and we're transforming that or transitioning that to the individual level so we can create a unique plan design, a personalized plan design for every single person that works inside a business. This is a company that wouldn't be possible to build without AI because of the dynamism required to actually underwrite and design an insurance policy and plan for each person that works at a company, not just the company overall. And so there are whole new business models that are already being created or that used to be impossible to do, practically speaking, that are now in scope because of AI. I think all of that aside, the most important thing happening inside businesses today relative to AI is how businesses are being built. And this is a cultural question. It's the people inside of a business organizing themselves in different ways. Companies are beginning already to change who they hire and how they hire. And we have this thesis at Stack, it's about a 10-person team today, that we should be hiring slower, smaller, and senior as a business. Slower in that we are taking more time than ever to actually make an incremental hire. And more businesses, I think, are doing this as they carefully pick the humans that they want on their team, since they'll be able to supplement with more agentic help and AI to create these superpowers for the people that they have. Smaller in that the teams that we'll end up building will all be 2 to 5 times smaller on average than they would be otherwise. So an engineering team of 10 is now an engineering team of 2 or 3, or a marketing team of 5 is now 1 person. And senior. And this is an interesting one because I think there's data that you can look at right now that suggests this is or isn't true, and Shereen's going to help us with this one, which is we are hiring at Stack a very experienced person on average. 10, 12, 15 years of existing experience where they are a subject matter expert in what they do already, and now they can supplement with AI capabilities that allow them to not just know the answer to how to build something, but they can actually then do the building instead of classically working through a team to do it.
Wow. So Shereen, I'm sitting here thinking about our son who's a junior computer science major. Is he going to have a job when he graduates? But he, I say, what are you working on? He's like, Mom, I'm not going to explain algorithms to you. So Ohio State says that its new AI fluency curriculum, which launched with last fall's freshmen, is the most comprehensive in the country to ensure that future graduates can use these tools to succeed in their chosen field. People are rightly worried about, I don't have this experience. I am a junior developer. People are worried, or I'm a customer service rep at a company. People are very worried about the future of work. So, Shereen, are the kids all right?
So it's a really interesting question. Our AI Fluency Initiative, I'm very proud of it. The definition that we specifically took on for AI fluency was one that was very deliberate. It's about being fluent in the application of AI to the field, to the domain. It's not about the technology itself. It's about what is it that you want to do or further explore to accelerate that particular field. And it's for every undergraduate program. So that's over 180 programs. You think about how people are right now talking about, okay, AI in this field, and to be honest, a lot of those things feel a lot like, I'm just going to slap AI on this thing, I'm going to use it to write X, or I'm going to use it to create X, instead of what can it actually be doing to accelerate the thing that I want to further explore. As an example, think about what does it mean for music and AI? Very quickly, you could tell yourself, okay, then it's going to be using AI to create music. Well, we have a professor, Dr. Tina Tallon, who has a class on AI and music, and it's actually for the students saying, what problems do you want to solve? What opportunities do you see in music? And so one of the students said, well, when I think about actually learning how to play an instrument, I can't actually get really great data on how to, properly kind of push the right amount of air through this mouthpiece. But through creating the right sensors and an AI-enabled mouthpiece, I can improve my embouchure in a way that even an instructor wouldn't be able to tell me, but now I can have a better loop with that instructor. Just a very interesting advancement of how can it be used to actually solve a problem. In our classics department, it's about, one of the courses that they're currently building is how you use AI to explore the linguistics of ancient literature. So go deeper into, okay, how, did literature and the way that people wrote, the way that people talk kind of evolve over time. And those are then kind of broadening that aperture of what is it that we mean by when we talk about AI and that broader set of all the technology that's enabled. And that is, all those things are hard. They're very hard pursuits, but they also, at a place like Ohio State where you have that breadth and depth of experience, you can tap into that. To your questions about the job market, or the earlier point that you made about where we see the definitions of AI or how people are perceiving it, those are definitely some areas of challenges. For so many people, a lot of that conversation around AI started in 2023. When they started using chat tools. And if we think about that being AI, then it is this very limited set of functions and a very limited scope of what's possible. Also, it limits even the conversation around what and where is AI already impacting the life that we're in. When I open up my device, every piece of software, when I'm in a healthcare system, how that healthcare system is operating, the energy grids are operating, and that broadening of that aperture is so important now even earlier. Because if you think about, if we're trying to make comparisons around other paradigm shifts that happened, the internet or computers or calculators, and all those comparisons have been made, this is different. The adoption was so quick because it was already able to be accessed. Generative AI was already able to be accessed on a device that we all had. And then most of those tools were free. It wasn't like we waited years to be able to afford or have a computer at a price point. When I had a graphing calculator, it was given to me in class as something we used at, for one class session because it was so expensive. And all those things happened with a longer adoption curve. This is trying to catch up to how something's already kind of being used. And so that part, I think, is really different here. And when we think about the job market, I think the job market conversation has been it's been really interesting for me because I think it's been so much whiplash and so many headlines that say one thing, and then 2 weeks later it says another. We have a lot of speculation, and those things have an impact on students. It has an impact on our youth thinking about well, what does happen if I concentrate in this area versus this area? You see computer science is an area where there's a lot of headlines about. Well, one set of headlines said one thing, and then literally changed the complete perspective. You fast forward a year, and then you look at where actual jobs are headed. If you're actually talking about a technology that is, powered in computing, you think about the increasing need for cybersecurity and all of these other things that kind of generate. So right now it feels like, in some cases, I wish people would just say they didn't know. Instead of speculating. But the biggest parts of the job market and the way that we think about the education components are how do you create durable skills, critical thinking skills, and the ability to have agency as things shift that you can adapt as being the most necessary when things are changing like that.
Fro, you had made a comment when we were prepping about AI creates thriving mid-careers. What does that mean?
First of all, the kids are going to be all right. the most dynamic part of the workforce, people that are learning and already building with these tools, is going to be great. You got Shereen helping at Ohio State, and there's equivalent programs at many other universities. We should all be actually really excited about what young people are going to do with the nested superpowers of AI embedded in our mobile capabilities and the internet in the coming years. It's going to be awesome. I'm very optimistic, very excited in general. One place of pessimism in the market has been, what is this going to do to the labor market on folks in their final third of their career, who have already spent the past, let's say, decade transitioning into the now quaint digital revolution, and now are being faced with doing so again inside a new coming wave of AI nativism. And I actually think this is like totally the opposite, and it's playing out in real time at at my new company, Stack Health today, which is that we have a lot of people with 15, 20, in some cases 25 years of professional experience working inside our business today that are thriving. And they're doing so because they've been properly AI pilled, meaning that they are downloading every tool, trying everything, getting in the game, and fully committing themselves as a high agency person to actually doing it. So that's like step one for everything here. But for those that have committed, they're having the time of their life. There are a ton of people actually in Silicon Valley that had like retired or semi-retired to a life of investing or a life of sitting on boards, and are actually coming back into their businesses or starting new businesses, getting back in the game because they are similarly excited about the opportunity. Sergey Brin and Larry Page from Google are great examples of this. They were literally on the yacht and have now come back in to Google to build with AI because they're so excited about this transformation. And we see this playing out here in Columbus. So we have folks on our team at Stack, 20, 25 years of experience, who are using AI tools, and they can do more than ever. And they can, instead of having to wait for a committee to approve the new feature that they want to build, and then they got to work with IT to figure out how to get on their roadmap and wait 6 months to actually get something done, they can just do it now. And this is a huge unlock for those who are inside companies where the culture is amenable to that level of velocity and self-agency, and where they themselves have the agency to build with these tools and add these superpowers to the subject matter expertise that they've already gained through the course of their career. So I would actually be incredibly excited right now if I were a, let's say, 20 years experienced marketing professional, and I have all these amazing new ways to get to my customer and set up ad campaigns and run hyper-targeted new programs, and I can build my own creative now. I don't need to rely on 3 external agencies. I don't need to rely on a huge team of folks that are more junior and need a lot of training to get up and actually execute with me. I can just do more of my own work. And I think that's a huge, exciting, and very undertold part of the AI story right now.
Tim, you had made a comment, and appropriate to what you do, and that the safest job you can have is the one you create. So, can anybody do that?
I think so. By the way, I could not agree more with everything you said. I'm 25 years in my career. I've never had more fun. And the CEO of Techstars, who was an engineer by background, has not built a single software product in years, is like literally rebuilding our entire operating system inside of Techstars, and like is shipping code every single day and loving it. So I think what you've observed is 1,000% real. So yeah, in the context of what Carrie said, I do think that yes, I am a bit of a hammer looking for a nail. Like I am someone who values deeply entrepreneurship and the role that it plays in our country and in the history of our country. And I believe that right now is the absolute best time to start something, because we don't know, to Shereen's point, we don't know what's going to happen. Anyone prognosticating what's going to happen in the job market, where things are going to shift, which jobs are going to be more at risk, which are not, no one knows the answer to that question. But what I can say with confidence is that if you are someone who has the remote inclination to sort of take the high agency, using the high agency analogy again, to take control, it's incredibly, the tools available to you are incredibly powerful and incredibly cheap. to build something. I think it's probably, there are scaled startups like solo, founders who are probably spending $10,000 a year across a number of different software tools that orchestrate different parts of their business, marketing or customer support, et cetera. They don't need anyone else. And I think last year there was a company that, a solo founder who started a company and sold it for $80 million in 6 months. If you are willing to put yourself in a position of high velocity learning, if you're willing to be intellectually curious, do all the things that sort of Fro and Shereen were talking about, then the safest opportunity for you is to control whether or not you have an income, whether or not you have a viable path, is that you're the one who's in charge of that. You don't have to worry about the sort of machinations of the macro economy around you and things that we're unsure of. So I'm probably the biggest advocate out there of someone starting something and doing it right now is the best time in history.
All right, go out there and sell your thing for $80 million. But not yet. We got a couple minutes to go. So why should your casual tech user, your general audience, care about all this? What is the impact of the work you're doing in the greater community? Sorry, I keep turning away from the mic. I'm not good at this. So what is your impact in the greater community, or what is the impact of this, to someone who's not in your fields?
Well, just to continue the thread of sort of the impact of entrepreneurship. So I'm sure there's someone smarter than me who can has more source data on this, but there's some data out there from economists that basically says, in the history of the United States, 80% of the economic growth in the history of the United States is unexplained. It's sort of attributed essentially to technological growth, to innovation. So basically, in the history of our country, the vast majority of growth has come from something that is some sort of stair-step change in our society, driven through some manner of technological innovation. And the speed and velocity of what's happening now is greater than any of that. So if you want, if the question is, why should one care? I think this is our economy. This is the sort of the ecosystem that we find ourselves in our country. And so if you don't understand it, if you're not, intellectually curious about it, if you're not paying attention to the trends that are happening, then you are not aligned with sort of, or you're not informed, I guess, as much as you could be around the core sort of economic function of our country. So if there's a reason to care, I think that it is that this is the engine that is driving the growth. And so it should matter simply for that reason.
A micro example here might be self-driving cars. Has anybody here been in a Waymo yet? Had an opportunity to do so? A few people? So a Waymo goes from being incredibly dope and unique and novel in your first ride to incredibly boring and just like you expected by rides 2 and on. And it works great. Only available in a few cities, coming to Columbus soon, I hope. So self-driving cars have been worked on already for a couple of decades and feverishly over the past 10 years. It's an AI-based technology. So how AI is impacting your community positively? Imagine self-driving cars finally getting to scale, which is hard because the sensors are difficult to build and you have to attach them to an entire car. And there's a ton of nuance and teeny tiny little edge cases with weather and the cars surrounding a self-driving car, et cetera. And as we bang out those final few percentage points of those edge cases and self-driving cars proliferate, car wrecks go away. And 50,000 people who die every year today in a car don't die anymore. And so these are the very practical things that get skipped over in discussions that very quickly go to AI doomerism about how our electricity costs are going to explode and how we're going to concentrate power in the hands of too few. All those risks are real, and we should be talking about them too, but there's some incredibly amazing things already happening inside AI native businesses, and to the point of it being the economy, and AI features inside of ideas that are still actually quite new and haven't even proliferated yet, but nobody's talking about it anymore because it's an old enough idea that it's no longer the hottest new thing to talk about. Zoom back to just 2015, 16, 17, when the first self-driving Teslas came out and when Uber was working on this feverishly. There was a lot of talk about how self-driving cars also were going to have negative impacts where professional drivers were going to be put out of business. That hasn't happened at all. There are more drivers on the road than ever. And the positive impacts, which is the safety component. And so I think we're just continuing to see AI impact the economy more. It's happening at a faster rate, and it's happening now in every industry, not just something like transportation.
And one more thing I wanted to add really quickly. I also think just I would imagine everybody's jobs in this room in some way is being impacted. That could be from when you're looking at an insurance claim and how that claim starts to look different, or it is AI generated, or your customer service tickets are AI generated, or the resumes that you're receiving. That whole process starts to look different. And or somebody's coming into your office as a patient and has already been doing some other type of diagnosis or analyzing their blood test results with AI. So with that, I would just say the process of continuing to learn and just being in that mindset allows you to also know what is and what's not possible, so that even when you're in those situations, there's a bit of what's happening here. And also, then what is it that you might do in response? In terms of if there's behavior you want to figure out how you address or curb or do anything for, that comes from knowing what is possible, what the technology is capable of, and then going to what you would do about it.
Well, thanks, everyone. This is all really exciting. It is CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions, and that's where we get interactive. We will move to our questions from the live stream and in person in just a few minutes, but I have one lightning round question, which is, it's unfair. I'm going to ask you to say in one sentence, how is Columbus poised to win? What is it, our people? Is it the industries? What does Columbus need, or where can it win in this race?
One sentence for me. We take on hard problems. That would be it.
When I moved to Columbus in 2014, almost no one had worked at a startup before here. That's no longer true. Companies like Root and Olive and Cover My Meds, my first company, Beam, have now created thousands of jobs. People have gone through an iteration or a couple of tours of duty at a startup, and so now the pump has been primed for people that are ready to build, know how to build, have done it before. So very exciting, I think, groundswell of ready talent and ready experienced founders and executives ready to build the next companies.
Yeah, I would just add that I think there's a high density of the industries that I think can dramatically transform through AI here, all the way from insurance to healthcare to advanced manufacturing, aerospace, defense. We have an opportunity to be on the leading edge of that transformation given the density of that industry, and I think that's super exciting.
And I would add, you can see part of Columbus's strength here on the stage. Moved here from Chicago, was going to just come during the Techstars sessions, and now I'm moving here. Moved here from Louisville, grew up in Northeast Ohio, worked for Twitter out in Silicon Valley, and came to Columbus. And so I'm from Milwaukee, but I've been here 25 years. We are ready for questions. So it is the perfect time to head to the microphone where Doug is standing. So while you're queuing up, I will have Doug read the first question from the interwebs.
Carrie, thank you very much. Thank you so much to today's panelists. If you have a question for today's panelists, please do join me here at the microphone. We'll try to get to as many of those as we can. If you're watching online on YouTube, please type your question into the chat. We'll get to as many of those. Great questions at CMC always have a couple things in common. They can be asked in just a sentence or two. And for our regulars, what punctuation mark does a question always end with? It ends with a question mark. Yes, it does. I'm going to launch us off with this one. For local businesses that are not tech companies, and that could be any kind of business, what should they be doing right now so they're not left behind by this AI revolution?
So I would say that like a lot of, like one area is a lot of the functions that you might be doing that are perhaps some of the administrative functions. That could be your finances, that could be marketing, things like that. Starting to explore what's possible with AI as well in order to kind of advance those superpowers, I think is the term you used, and allow you to actually even have some more time to be able to focus on the areas of your business. That might be kind of one place to start. It can feel a lot like, hey, where in that do you start? But there are, you know, kind of looking for those more targeted courses. And Ohio State has also launched some of those courses, and so those are available online. But being able to kind of look specifically at those topics and the specific thing that you might be doing, if it's paid marketing ads, if it's you know, your normal book management, looking up those things and actually experimenting and starting to see what's possible would be one place to start.
Companies here in town, did I just, that have, they're very legacy industries, staffing firm, and the Ohio Fund, which is a sovereign wealth fund to grow Ohio's economy, invested in them and brought in a contractor to build custom AI, and that staffing firm that's been at it for 20 years is now matching skills to jobs so much faster and getting, you know, they can take texts and they're landing people a lot faster. So just about any, there's a trucking company that adopted AI and it helps them.
Hi. I'm Ali. I work for startups. I'm an attorney. One thing which I've seen across the board is AI is more of a judgment. You have to make a judgment call, and that judgment call comes from experience. So I worry a lot about young people who are just joining the workforce. I want to know, what do you guys think from a perspective of a founder, from a perspective of an educational background? What should Columbus or generally Ohio should do to train the young people in AI?
So, you know, the question was about judgment, and I think a lot of that judgment is actually based on the critical thinking components. When we think about, you know, I think of AI as a technological advancement, but when we actually think about the tool, like the concept of a tool, any tool can be used either in like a kind of an advancing way or in a destructive way or some way that could make you lazier. And I will say that I don't think that that's a particularly just like a young person problem. I actually see, or challenge. I see a lot of people that are further progressed in their careers in the way that, you know, they're using AIs to solve or just to kind of put in a random prompt and just see what happens. And when you continue to do that, you stop asking yourself, why did I even start down this road? What was I trying to achieve? What outcome was I trying to solve for? And our young people and our students are actually like really asking themselves that question in a lot of cases. They're saying like, well, hey, what am I trying to get out of this? And actually, you know, they have a grade that they are looking for after that, or they're saying, hey, I'm, you know, pre-med and I really want to make sure that I'm understanding this content. And so their deliberateness, I think, is both, you know, something that they see a lot of them express, but also it has to be in the way that we design the education, the experience of how do you actually harness these tools, but also really put a lot of emphasis on the process. And that, I think, is even more important. Why did I start down this route? What was I hoping to achieve? Each step of the way, am I actually making progress towards getting that done? That has been, you know, part of, I would say, many mindsets, the scientific mindset, the engineering mindset. Each step of the way, is this process continuing to work? And even more so when you think about agents, you think about all of the things that you could be doing, that process is going to be that much more important, is checking is this continuing to work? Because at the end of the day, who's accountable? It's the human. And I think, again, like, it's a challenge for everybody to take that on and to be thinking through that. What is it that you are trying to accomplish? Make sure that the deliberateness continues to be part of that, because otherwise we have a chance collectively to develop a lot of bad habits.
Hi, my name is Linda Key. I'm here as educated with CCS. I'm also at Ohio State. I'm working on my dissertation now in multicultural and equity studies. And I think one of the biggest pieces of this conversation I think are missing is that lens of like humanism and multicultural equity studies in terms of like I think that a lot of this conversation is really dehumanizing and also is very meritocracy based. I think that when we're talking about the things that are impacting Columbus right now, and I know when I see that some of my students, they don't have time to think about self-driving cars because they are trying to make sure that they have bus fare to get to school back and forth. I think looking at this larger picture in terms of the economy, we're not really addressing some of the needs, like how many of these companies are actually like getting tax abatement? What are they putting back into the communities? I think these are the conversations when we talk about the growth of Columbus. It's not just about capitalism, how much money these companies are making. It's about what are you going to do for the community at large? And I see things, I mean, we could look out this window right now where we're actually in a place where the veterans in our city are being neglected. The health care. I have family members who are struggling to get health care for their mother, for their parent, because the systems are just not set up that way. So I think in the larger scope, when we start talking about these things and we start talking about profits, what does all that mean if we're not humanizing these profits? And I think that we've kind of somehow got, I don't know, I think this whole larger conversation is not about how much money Columbus can make, because let's face it, only certain people are going to be making that money. So I don't know how you address this humanitarian aspect of AI, and I think is very scary in terms of the jobs that it has the potential to take.
Well, maybe so. It's a great point. I've actually been living this in my life over the past year or so, building my new company, which is the core purpose of the business is to take cost out of the healthcare system, and we're building as an AI native business. So I think that many of the world's problems can be solved through entrepreneurship. That's especially true in America, where we've got this insanely unique culture around solving problems in the private market context. And I think healthcare is actually going to be one of the places where we will see the most AI dividends, which will be everything from solving diseases that couldn't get medicines built for them in a cost-effective and tailored way previously, now being possible and cost-effective enough to do so. So I think we'll see the proliferation of new drugs on market in the coming 10 years or so. And I think we'll also see the ability to actually get the administrative glut out of the healthcare system, which is just the simple coordination of people's benefits to how they access the healthcare system. That's the area of the healthcare market that I'm going after in my new business. And I think it's the perfect synthesis of a really mission-oriented business that's deeply human at its core. Healthcare is very hands-on, it's very local, it's very intimate, combined with AI capabilities that allow us, vis-a-vis the platform that we're building, to be able to reach into more communities and more parts of the market to innovate more quickly and to pool cost out of the system. There will be many more products and companies built in healthcare and then other very human-centric parts of the economy that we think will pay just enormous dividends, not just in economic terms, but in human terms over time.
I would also add, I think that is, going back to the last question that you asked, like Columbus's advantage here, the way that we work across sectors in communities like this to push on asking the tough questions, making sure that those considerations and like the multifaceted view is taken into consideration, even more so than I often see in some tech hubs. That is so critical and important, and something that I think Columbus has and can continue to leverage that as an advantage in doing something that, like, across this change here is actually kind of a movement with, like, bringing everybody along and making sure that those types of questions are asked.
Hello, my name is Bethany Ellis. I am a superintendent and student ambassador of Columbus City Schools, and I wanted to ask, what are your concerns when it comes to adaptability in a world of technology, in a world of evolving technology, as it pertains to youth like me, my peers, and our future?
I'm pretty hopeful about this, actually, because I think that your peers and young people in general are the best equipped to take advantage of the change that's coming. You're the most native in the tools, as Shereen sort of said. We already have all these devices. We have all the software. AI is just, is enhancing the experience that we have with them, and no one knows that better than you and your peers. And so I think, the question earlier about, sort of judgment, responsibility, how do we sort of, ensure that young people, are using these tools correctly? Actually, I have a tremendous amount of optimism that the inherent sort of judgment is there because this is native to you already. I would put more trust in young people leveraging this technology than I would in myself because I think you have a deeper sort of relationship with the technology around it, and so I think I'm not worried about your adaptability. I'm worried about my adaptability in the end.
Giving me the wrap-up signal, so appropriately, the last question will be from one of our young people.
Hello, my name is Alabanjala Mead. I'm also with SSA, and I have a question. It's regarding as AI is spreading, are there any checks and balances that have been made or are gonna be made to stop it or just to check it, really?
Definitely no Skynet. No one wants that. I mean, look, there's a tremendous burden on multiple constituents in all of this to ensure that those guardrails exist. One is the frontier AI companies themselves, OpenAI, Anthropic, the ones who are driving this. There's a tremendous amount of impetus on them to put controls in place to make this safe for all of us. And they're doing things there are models they've created that they know today could potentially cause some threat, and they're not releasing it because they know that's the case. And obviously, there's impetus on federal government and state and local governments to address this. So I think there are multiple people who have to get this right in order for us to avoid the Skynet scenario. And it seems like good judgment is being used so far, but that needs to continue to be the case.
There's a lot of different models being proposed right now about how you do some parts of governance, and I think there's discussion, there's proposals being raised about what that looks like, who actually has enough information and balanced information to be able to be part of those conversations, and then what does governance actually look like. And there's so many pieces of the impact, right? We're talking about increased data usage, that's increased environmental impact. There's the pieces around how jobs are also being looked at and where there's cuts that are being made because people want to invest in more technological infrastructure. There's the actual governance of the model, the data privacy pieces, copyright, everything. It's pushing on a lot of systems and bodies in a way that at least what I think is great is that it is reaching all of these people to push on those tough conversations. I don't think we've seen then what it actually looks like to get those pieces of governance kind of up or sustaining. But you do also see where people, and even when saying hey, this one policy comes out, we're going to shift between platforms, we're going to drop our usage because these parts happened. Some of the consumer behaviors also just drive inherent parts of, well, if you aren't going to be a company or going to have practices that I trust, then you will see that in just how I kind of interact with your products. Those parts still exist as well.
All right. You will all be happy to know that Sophia is coming back to the stage. So thank you all so much for coming and being part of this fascinating conversation.
All right, I hope everyone found today's conversation exciting. I was literally sitting in my chair giddy about a lot of the conversation that is happening, and specifically from my lens, as a CEO of a civic organization, I'm thinking about how Central Ohio will leverage AI as law firms start to create new tools and advancements that help individuals who are, hurt or injured in the medical community, or how students or the community will leverage AI to advance advocacy and organize better, or how policy will shift. And we've had so many conversations around entrepreneurship. Last week, we had a conversation about economic mobility and the importance of entrepreneurship here in Central Ohio as one way to solve some of the social disparities that we see here in our community. So this was just absolutely wonderful. I want to thank today's forum sponsor for a wonderful conversation, Retzel and Andrus, and to Downtown Columbus Incorporated for providing complimentary parking. Thank you to our presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch. We are so grateful to the National Veterans and Memorial Museum for hosting us every single week in a place that's focused on service and community. And most importantly, I'd like to thank our panelists, Shereen, Alex, Tim, and Carrie. Thank you so much for a wonderful conversation. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, and so if you are a regular at CMC, you know that we are all about civic participation, from one, gaining more information from forums like this, but also from reading. So if you're really excited about this topic and you want to learn more, we have a wonderful partnership with the Columbus Metropolitan Library, and they are recommending reading The AI Startup Strategy by A. Mahindra. Feel free to check it out at the local library. And last, we host conversations like this every single week. So next week, I welcome you to come back to the CMC because we're hosting a conversation with Governor Mike DeWine. Thank you so much for being here today, and we hope you have a great Wednesday.